Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 update by Heerak. It's September 24, 2020, and it's Thursday, heading into flu season. Hopefully, all of you got your flu shots. Make sure your children got their flu shots, your parents got flu shots. It's going to be very, very important heading into 6 months of flu season. As you know, I shared with you I had influenza A in March that developed into acute bacterial bronchitis. Um, Thankfully, it didn't progress to pneumonia, but yeah, I could have died from that, And I had the flu shot, so even with the flu shot, you could still get the flu, but you have a higher chance of not getting it. Every year, a lot of people die from the flu. And in this COVID-19 America flu season, far more will die from the flu. Obviously, many will die from COVID-19, but you could get several things at once, like COVID-19, flu, cold, strep throat, mononucleosis. You can get a whole slew of things all at once. Um, yeah, those people have little chance of surviving COVID. Um, yeah, as you know, I'm predicting that there will be at least 3 million Americans who will die in the flu season. It only takes 60,000 deaths per state to have 3 million Americans die in the flu season. Flu season is 6 months long, from like end of September, beginning of October to like April. Um, and so for 6 months, 60,000 people dying in one state. That's only 10,000 people dying in a state in a month. That's easy to do because, as we know from New York, there were 30,000 who died in just 1 month of April. Um, and it was towards the tail end of flu season. And there were a lot of parts of New York State where there were no infections. Situation is completely different now. Every inch of New York has exposure to COVID-19 or access to it, ready access. And New York State will see the whole 6 months of flu season. So I'm predicting that just in the state of New York, there will be 1 million deaths from COVID. Um, yeah, and many states will have more than 60,000 die in 6 months of flu season. So it's going to be horrific. And Dr. Fauci came around to my position and stated today that there is enough evidence that COVID-19 can be airborne. There are a lot of strains of COVID-19. And so, like influenza, we have influenza A strain and we have influenza B strain. I had the influenza A. COVID-19 has more than 40 strains, and there is ample evidence that some of the strains uh, are airborne. Maybe all of them are airborne under certain conditions. Scientists do not know what those conditions might be yet, because it's a new virus. And scientists do not know which strains may be airborne, but there is enough evidence that is scientifically documented that there is airborne dimension to COVID-19. So in every hospital, um, COVID-19 is treated kind of like it's airborne. The nurses are required to wear N95 masks and even goggles because there's fear that COVID-19 can infect you through your open eyeballs. So so they're telling all the nurses to make sure they wear their goggles And every hospital is doing that. Virginia Hospital Center, where I am a registered nurse. Made in the dark, lit by a single flame. Yes. Yeah, that's my point. And so, yeah, it's, we say Christ is the light of the world. So when we have a single candle lit, we say that represents Jesus Christ, and it is promise of God fulfilled. Jesus Christ. Yeah, but unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, obviously Jesus Christ saves from eternal damnation if you believe him. But it doesn't seem like Jesus will save America from physical death from COVID-19. How do we know? 1,000 people on average were dying every day in August. So that's proof positive God is not going to save America from physical death from COVID-19. He hasn't saved America, and he is not saving America. And high probability is that he will not save America from COVID-19 death, physical death, during the 6 months of flu season. That's why I'm fairly sure that minimum 3 million Americans will die. Because had God wanted Americans not to die from COVID-19 physically, 1,000 people would not have died during the month of August per day. But the fact that God allowed average 1,000 Americans to die per day from COVID-19 during the month of August shows us that God's willing to have millions of Americans die in the flu season. Because in the summer, in China, in 4 months, no one died. 0 died in 4 months in China. But that wasn't the case in America. So if God were willing to kill 1,000 or allow 1,000 per day to die on average in America, God will allow millions of Americans to die during the flu season. So I think that's something that we can count on. Christians, non-Christians can count on that. Obviously, Jesus is the light of the world. So if you believe in Jesus, when you die from COVID-19, you will enter into paradise, into eternal life. But God's not going to save you from COVID-19, most likely. God will save some from COVID-19, and probably God will save individuals on a case-by-case scenario based on whether the person loves Jesus and followed his law. Because, loving Jesus necessarily translates into recognizing God's law as accurate and correct and worthy of following, right? As a moral guide. So most likely during COVID-19 America flu season, millions of Americans would die. Many Christians would die as well, including true born-again Christians. Millions would die. But case by case, God may spare some people based on how zealously they follow the law of God to keep the 10 Commandments. And we have evidence for this blessing of God in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So the righteous will be blessed. Obviously, that message is throughout the book of Psalms. Those who follow in the way of the Lord shall be protected. This concept exists in the New Testament. But, not everybody is diligent to observe the 10 Commandments or follow the law of God. So you should count on millions of American Christians, including born-again Christians, from dying, because wages of sin is death. And that's something that the Bible emphasizes. So if people are sinning, when they ask God for forgiveness, they will be forgiven of their sins to the extent that they will not go to hell, eternal damnation in hell, spiritual death, but go to eternal life in heaven. But that's not going to change the fact that they will receive due justice for their sin on this earth. So, for example, when Adam and Eve uh, ate of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, God forgave them of their sin, so they went into eternal life after their death. But on this earth, even after God forgave them, God kicked them out of the Garden of Eden and allowed Adam and Eve to die, which they would not have experienced had they not sinned in the first place. So, Adam and Eve example is a very good way to understand our situation in America in terms of COVID-19. If you sin in a serious way, because there are different levels of sin, and God's punishment matches the gravity of sin, as the Holy Bible shows us. Not all sin is equal. Some sin are more heinous than others. Westminster Confession of Faith, shorter catechism, larger catechism, they all emphasize this. And Bible emphasizes this. Obviously, stealing is not the same as killing a human being in cold blood who is innocent, right? Like abortion. So, as you know, Archdiocese of DC and Diocese of Arlington, Bishop Burbridge, they oppose abortion. The Pope of the Catholic Church, who's the leader of 1.2 billion people, called abortion as murder. And so that is a fundamental part of the Catholic faith. It's in fact Christian faith, biblical Christian faith. So not only Catholics, but Baptists, Pentecostals, Presbyterians, Methodists, they agree with the Pope and Bishop Burbridge in Arlington Diocese, Catholic Diocese, and with Archdiocese of DC, District of Columbia. Yeah, so in serious sins, you can be forgiven and go to heaven, but God will still let you die from COVID-19 or all kinds of other things that's going to be existing while COVID-19 exists, like the flu or the common cold or stroke, heart attack. So, I would encourage you to be extra careful about not committing serious sins because wages of sin is death. And God will forgive you even if you kill somebody. I don't go around killing people, but God will forgive you because God is love. But you will pay for your sin, even if God forgives you so that you go to eternal life. God will punish you on earth for your sin because God is just. That is justice of God. Your sin will be white as snow, so you will go to heaven, but you will suffer the consequences of your sin on earth. Because God is fair, God is just. So if one woman remained a virgin until she married, as God expects of all Christian women, obviously it's not fair for her to be treated the same as someone who had 10 different sexual partners before getting married, even if she is a Christian and repented and was truly forgiven for her 10 extramarital sexual partners. So God will not treat these two women the same because that would make God unjust. That would make God unfair. And God is just and fair, and that is emphasized in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And in the book of Revelations, God is judge. And that is why God will not treat everyone the same. God will punish sinners on earth, even if God forgives them, so that they go to eternal life in heaven. Their sin is white as snow, so they go to heaven. But on earth, they will suffer far more, the people who have sinned, even if they're forgiven, than those who have worked hard not to sin, to lead a holy life. Why do you think there's an incentive to live a holy life? Why do you think the Holy Bible says, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty? Be holy as God is holy. Why do you think God says that in the Holy Bible? Because there are consequences to moral lapse, like premarital sex. Um, and that's why, God is fair. God's not going to treat people who sin, even if they repent, in the same way as people who work hard not to sin. Because God sees the effort that was placed in to not sinning, and God's going to treat that person with fairness and justice. Because God is fair, God is just, right? You would agree that it's unfair for God to treat you the same if you have premarital sex because you gave into your sexual desire, whereas everybody has sexual desire. It's not like just you. Everybody has sexual desire, but they fought it and they fought it and they fought it and they remained virgins until they got married because they knew that's what God wanted them to do. Look at the emotional struggle they had to fight, sexual desire and passion they had to fight to remain virgins. God is fair, God is just. He's going to recognize that. And that's why we know that not everybody is treated the same. And that's why, from a spiritual angle, as you know, I'm a theologian, I'm a certified theologian, published a lot of articles, presented a lot of papers, wrote a lot of books. And you could type in my name, Heerak Christian Kim, you see my name there on Amazon.com, and you can read theological books that I've written. And you can understand God better. So I'm a certified expert of theology. And so I can give you my expert opinion as a certified expert theologian, recognized and respected by theologians around the world, that God is just, God is fair, and that involves God punishing you on this earth, physical earth, even after forgiving you and making your sin white as snow, allowing you to go to heaven, because you can't enter heaven with sin. So when you ask God for forgiveness, you're forgiven, so you can enter into heaven. But on earth, you will suffer the consequences of your actions. And that's because God is fair. And that is principle that is clearly outlined in the New Testament and Old Testament. So I can say as an expert, that is something that you can look forward to. And that's why, it's important for you to struggle, not to sin. Because every sin you commit has consequence. And God counts it. He's like very meticulous. He counts everything. He counts the hair on your head. He has nothing else to do as an infinite, eternal being, but just be nosy on everybody's lives, every second of the day, every day of the week, every week in a month, every month in a year, every single person. God is very nosy. So you can be sure that he's not going to let anything slide. And Bible emphasizes that God counts the hair on your head. So if you think God's going to take COVID-19 away from America this winter, you're mistaken. From a spiritual angle, as an expert theologian, I guarantee there will be millions of lives that will die if God will act according to the way he normally acts in the New Testament and Old Testament. Now, obviously, he could change course or he could perform miracles, but if God acts in the way he normally acts in the Old Testament and New Testament and throughout the 2,000 years of Christian history, and as you know, throughout Christian history, there have been bubonic plagues that killed 1/3 of the world's population. You can even speculate that God may kill 1/3 of the world's population through COVID-19. You can't rule that out from a theological, spiritual angle. Think about it this way. COVID-19 is 365 days a year. It's a permanent virus. It's not going to go away. It's going to infect us at the same rate, kill at the same or higher rate because it's mutating to be more lethal. And Dr. Fauci came out and agreed with me that there are airborne strains And that's actually position of all the expert infectious disease people anyway. So I'm just providing you with evidence-based research, what little that exists right now since COVID-19 is new. Yeah, so as a clinical nurse leader, you know, I am an expert who does evidence-based research to provide information, in terms of um, healthcare, healthcare delivery. That is within my scope of practice as a clinical nurse leader. And I'm a certified clinical nurse leader, nationally certified. So this is all within my scope of practice in terms of my role as a clinical nurse leader. So yeah, I'm certified. I was trained for Master of Science in clinical nurse leader at Georgetown University, as you know, for 2 years, 6 semesters. So, so yes, I provide you spiritual insights, but also evidence-based research on COVID-19, which is within my scope of practice as a clinical nurse leader. Yeah, because I'm certified as a clinical nurse leader. So, yeah, I mean, Dr. Fauci is an expert, and he says there's an airborne component. There is no healthcare expert who says millions cannot die from COVID-19, because they all know that it's scientifically possible that millions die from COVID-19. That's something, that's, you can't deny it, the possibility. And since COVID-19 is 365 days a year virus, it can continue forever, like HIV virus, which was discovered decades ago. So 365 days a year virus is not going to go away. Same with hepatitis C virus. It's a 365 days a year virus. It's not going to go away. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people die from hepatitis C complications. And there are hundreds of thousands of people who die every year from HIV complications. And HIV can develop into cancer or AIDS or other types of immunocompromise that kills you. And there's growing evidence that COVID-19 may have complications that could relate to immunocompromise as well as possible blood coagulation, stroke activity. And there isn't much research on oncology as it relates to COVID-19 because COVID is new. But most scientists do not rule out that COVID-19, coronavirus, could cause cancer. But, they still have to do more research on that. There are a lot of viruses that cause cancer, like HPV virus can cause cervical cancer. Yeah, so hepatitis virus can cause cancer in the liver. So it is not abnormal for viruses to cause cancer because especially RNA virus, which COVID-19 is, it hijacks the DNA mechanism, replication mechanism. So as long as DNA replication becomes skewed, your cells can become cancerous, right? Because what cancer is your own cells growing in the wrong direction. Like it normally develop, but because virus skews it, it develops in the wrong way. That's what cancer is, right? And so, in the coming years, we may see a lot of cases of cancer developing out of COVID-19. Obviously, there has to be years of research on it, and we don't really have much evidence-based research on that yet, because COVID-19 is new, and cancer takes time from infection of a virus, whether it's HIV virus, hepatitis virus, or HPV virus. It takes time for cancer to develop. But my hypothesis, educated guess, is that it is possible for COVID-19 to cause cancer. So, because we know that HPV virus causes cancer, we know that hepatitis virus causes cancer. There's enough evidence-based research on that. We know that HIV virus causes cancer, certain kinds of cancer. So there's enough evidence-based research done by nurses, doctors, scientists to say conclusively these viruses cause cancer, that it's not just a parallel reality, but it's a causative reality. So my hypothesis at this point is that COVID-19 can cause cancer as well. And since COVID-19 is exhibiting blood coagulation problems, stroke problems, heart problems, lung problems, obviously, there can be different types of cancer related with any of these conditions, right? Because hepatitis basically affects your liver, so it develops into cancer there, right? HPV is a sexually transmitted virus, so you have a cervical cancer right there. You see? So whichever part of your body or your organs are impacted, cancer can grow there as a result of that virus. So since COVID-19 seems to be impacting blood coagulation, you may develop some kind of blood cancer like leukemia. And because it's showing that it's causing stroke, and we don't know what is causing stroke, what's going on in your brain, it may cause brain cancer. We know we have enough evidence-based research right now, even in the past 6+ months, to show that COVID-19 damages your heart, so your cancer can develop in your heart. So these are some of the things that may be researched in the future. Obviously, we don't have data now because COVID-19 is new. But my theory is that COVID-19 can cause cancer in every area that it seems to directly impact. Obviously that's a hypothesis at this point. We need many years to research it. So, I think I can say with relative confidence at this point that it is, at this point, looking forward into the future, possible that we may have 1/3 of the world's population die from COVID-19. So what we are familiar with is COVID-19 patients having respiratory problems, right? So that's why we've been focusing on. But I think that is a limited way to look at COVID-19. It's based on prejudice that we had in November 2019, that it is a respiratory virus. I think we need to come out of that box and look at COVID-19 more holistically, and understand the possibility that it's not merely a respiratory virus, and different strains of COVID-19 may act differently as well. So we need to put ourselves out of the box of COVID-19 being a respiratory virus. Mutations, are occurring as experts have pointed out. And so Yeah, I mean, I think we cannot rule out the fact that just as bubonic plague killed 1/3 of the world's population, COVID-19 could possibly kill 1/3 of the world's population in the coming years and decades. We don't know how long this thing it will last. As far as we know at this point, COVID-19 can be forever because obviously it's not a seasonal virus. It's not like a seasonal flu virus. It's a 365 days a year virus, and it is transmitted in summer throughout the 365 days, as our US history of COVID proves. And that's why going at this rate with mutations, it is possible for 1/3 of the world's population to die from this. Um, I would like to see Dr. Fauci examine this a little bit, this reality, this possibility. Same with Dr. Redfield, Dr. Hahn, Admiral Guerrero, Dr. Gottlieb, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and also, Bill Gates. He's a brilliant guy. He's researching COVID-19. He predicts millions will die. He's right. Millions will definitely die. But I'm saying that billions can die, right? 1/3 of the world's population would be over 2 billion people. So I'm saying that it can happen. So I would let the record show that Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th district, has predicted this, hypothesized this, and I've actually mentioned this earlier, several weeks, several months ago. So today's not the first time I'm saying this, but I think that time has come for experts to research this possibility, because experts have not really researched wide and far. They've been kind of looking at things in a myopic, very focused, what Israelis would say, akshavit, right now, what's happening now. But I think that's a wrong way to approach the pandemic. We need to look at the long game. Obviously, more experts are saying COVID-19 will exist at least until 2022, but I still think that's still short run. We need to look at the long run, like the possibility that COVID-19 can exist until 2030, 2040, 2050. And we need hypotheses and projections. If COVID-19 continues to exist into 2030, 10 years from now, how many people in the world would have died? We need a model that examines this potential using the current realities, using the sciences of infectious diseases to create a projection model. For those of you who are business people, you create a projection model. Projected profit, projected revenue, projected losses. And we need that for COVID-19. Because wishful thinking that it will go away in a couple of years, that's just not realistic right now. I don't think scientists should be so emotionally charged, so emotionally vested, that they allow their biases to cloud their judgment. That's not what we need right now, because the world cannot survive COVID-19 on superstition that it will go away. What scientific evidence do you have that it will go away? There is no scientific evidence. Areas that seem to have COVID-19 die down are seeing spikes again with travel. So one person can infect 1,000, the 1,000 can infect, 1,000 each person in the 1,000 group. So even if you reduce COVID-19 to 0 in your city, All you need is one person to come to your city with COVID-19 for your city to have conflagration again. And experts show they could get COVID more than once in a year, several, maybe even several times a year. And if COVID-19 continues for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we need projection by experts using scientific models and all the knowledge that we have acquired until now. How many will die in 2030 in America? How many will die in 2040 in America? How many will die by 2030 in the world? We need a projection because there is no scientific evidence that says it's going to go away by 2030. I don't think any scientists would say that it's going to go away by 2030 because it's a 365 days a year virus. It's not a seasonal virus. It's not like Spanish pandemic of flu pandemic of 1918, which was a flu virus. This is not a flu virus. It's more like an HIV virus, and the World Health Organization has emphasized that, have gone on record officially to say COVID-19 may be forever. And so there's no reason to doubt that COVID-19 may be forever, for decades to come, and that it could actually kill 1/3 of the world's population. So, I, Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, am predicting that COVID-19 will kill 1/3 of the world's population at this rate if it continues for decades to come. And I don't think I'm saying anything out of the ordinary because it's an exponential growth of death. 10 years from now, obviously, exponentially great number of people that died. So it's a model that goes in an exponential growth. So for those of you who are business people, you know how your growth projections, start out kind of relatively low, starts growing. At some point, it's going to hit a peak. That's what's going to happen. Right now, we're in the beginning stages of COVID-19. We have a few 100,000 deaths. That's a drop in the bucket for a pandemic. At least 50 million is going to die because it's a pandemic. It's everywhere. I don't think any expert doubts that minimum 100 million in the world will die in the next couple of years. Next 2 years or so. I don't think there's any healthcare expert who doubts that 100 million can die in 2 to 3 years. I'm predicting that 100 million will die by next April in the world, and 20% are dying in America. So about 20 million will die in America by April. That's my projection. I'm Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, as you know. As I said, there's no evidence from a theological standpoint that God's going to spare the Christians in America from COVID-19 death. That's why I tell you to wear a mask when you go to church and not to talk to anybody in church when you go to church. Just worship God, come back home. Yeah, do not be talking to people at church. Yeah, especially with those homemade masks without filters. Yeah, you're just asking for it. Yeah, as you know, I encourage all of you to get a surgical mask. Surgical mask has 3 filters that protects you, and it's the next best thing after N95 mask. So I've been encouraging you for months to get a surgical mask. Box of 50 is like $15. It could be higher or lower based on, you could order them from Amazon. I told you to order like 20 boxes of 50 per box or more. More the better. It's not like, you could always use it. Yeah, it's not going away. And theologically, God's not going to protect Christians from COVID-19. Hey, you should be happy you're going to go to heaven if you repent of your sins. But yeah, God's not going to protect your life from COVID-19 if you sin. Because we know God kills Christians. because we see that in book of Exodus. So I would encourage you to read book of Exodus, book of Jeremiah, because God rationalizes in the book of Jeremiah through the theologians why he kills believers. So if you want to understand God and how he acts, you want to read book of Jeremiah, book of Deuteronomy to understand the rationale of God. Yeah, and it's self-explanatory, but as you know, I'm a certified expert of theology, so I can say with conclusive positivity that God's not going to spare the Christians in COVID-19 flu season. Millions of Christians will die in America. Yeah, I mean, I mean, you will go to heaven if you repent, but God's still going to punish you for your sin. Yeah. God's just that way. God likes punishing people. I mean, that's very clear in book of, Pauline epistles, book of Revelations. It's book of Revelations that says 1/3 of the world's population must die before Jesus comes back. Jesus hasn't come back yet. So before he comes back, 1/3 has to die. It could be this COVID-19. Although God has been known to stay psych. So because after bubonic plague, a lot of theologians thought Jesus would come back because 1/3 of the world's population died. So a lot of things in the book of Revelation were being fulfilled. But then God said psych and did not send Jesus Christ in the second coming. So yes, 1/3 of the world died, but Jesus didn't come back. So yeah, God is known to kind of toy with us. Meaning like when people who follow the Bible, theologians who trace the book of Revelation to see where we are in the prophecy. God has been known to toy with theologians and Christians. So like 70% get fulfilled in book of Revelations, and then the clock sets back from to the beginning. And then I mean, I don't know, I guess God has sick sense of humor, when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, being an eternal being, I guess he has to deal with his boredom somehow, I guess he deals it with us this way. What can you say? He's God, he could do whatever he wants. What are you going to do? Not believe in God and go to eternal damnation and hell? You know what I'm saying? God, you're a jerk. You had 70% of book of Revelations fulfilled. 1/3 of the world's population died from bubonic plague. Where is Jesus? You're a jerk. You reset the clock. Wait, if you don't believe in Jesus, you don't want to believe in Jesus and go to heaven, you go to eternal damnation and hell forever. What choice do you have? I mean, you know what I'm saying? God hoards all the cards, so he could play and toy with us as many times as he wants. What are you going to do? Like, God, I'm going to boycott the Bible and, boycott you, God? And then you end up in going to eternal damnation and hell. I mean, who loses? God doesn't lose anything from that. You lose everything. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, to use a technical term in our society, God is a jerk, but, oh yeah, don't punish me. But yeah, because if a human being did that, geez, what a beep, 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 but, he's God. So he holds all the cards. So yeah. So technical term is a jerk. God is a jerk, but what can you do, He holds all the cards. You can't just like boycott him or reject him because, when you die, you either go to heaven or hell, right? I mean, geez. And God holds all the cards with that. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah. So this is a happy National Punctuation Day. Yeah. What's the punctuation? Exclamation point. God is a jerk. Exclamation point. Yeah, but be careful. God gets angry. So I wouldn't insult him too much. I'm just trying to illustrate a point here. Yeah. So don't punish me. Don't punish me. I'm just kind of, providing some expert teaching on your nature. In at the 5th grade level, so everybody can understand it. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. Don't think that God's going to save you if you're Christian from COVID-19 death. But I mean, if you're a Christian, you go to heaven when you die. So that's that's something I could find comfort in. I mean, if you want to negotiate with God, You can pray and say, God, don't let me die from COVID-19. Hey, I encourage you to talk with your father, Abba Father, that's who God is. Negotiate away, wrestle with God. Maybe God will let you live, yeah. Um, yeah, anyway, yeah, there's my hero, Kim Davis. She's my hero in America. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I'm sharing photos from the 125th year anniversary of the Penn Newman Center, University of Pennsylvania Newman Center, and Drexel University Newman Center. Um, they had the 125th anniversary celebration. I went to that. Um, it was in the fall of 2019, and it was great. I actually met some people there who are at Georgetown. Like her husband is at Georgetown. She's a doctor who got her MD at Uniform Services Medical School. I guess it's in Bethesda, and she works for Indian Affairs Service as a doctor. So she takes care of Native Americans. She was the president of the Penn Newman Center, student president when she was a student at Penn. And celebrations were great. They had really nice banquet dinner. I really enjoyed. And they had a lot of interesting lectures on Newman, who's an amazing individual. So I attended those, and they dedicated a new building. You see that photo next to Kim Davis? Um, yeah, and the priests at the Newman Center, they're great. It's St. Agatha Parish in Philadelphia. Yeah, I mean, I always, participate in anti-abortion marches sponsored by Penn Newman when I was at University of Pennsylvania. So, um, I find memories of Penn Newman Center. Um, yeah. So we have 798 people who've died in the last 24 hours in America. So an average of 1,000 people dying per day. Right now, we're heading into the flu season. So we have 2,728 people have died so far. I'm predicting minimum 3 million this flu season. So by April, we'll have more than 3 million there. That's what I'm predicting. I'm hoping I'm going to be wrong, but I mean, it is the flu season. It's not hard to understand that 60,000 can die from COVID-19 in the flu season. I don't think there's any nurse or doctor or healthcare expert who doesn't think that's possible. I'm sure every nurse in America, 4 million of them, every doctor, every scientist, every healthcare expert believes that 60,000 can die in their state. And if 60,000 die in every state, you have 3 million. Yeah, it's feasible. I mean, it's likely, I would say. Um, yeah, so we have 6,974,441 cases so far. Experts are saying 90% of Americans can get COVID in flu season, which is possible. So let's say 300 million people get COVID. We have 3% death rate. 9 million people will die. You see that? Yeah. At that rate, obviously, once you run out of ICUs, once you run out of hospital beds, once you run out of ventilators, 100% of the people can die because they need ventilators to breathe. Yeah, I mean, if there's no room in the hospital, there's no ventilator, how are you going to live? Like 100% of the people who get COVID after that would die if they need the ventilator. Yeah, so I mean, horrific death is coming, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even have a graduation ceremony this year. As you know, you see behind me, that's a photo from 2019, Georgetown University graduation. It was so nice. I'm so glad I went there. I went there because I'm vice president of Georgetown University graduate student government, GradGov. I was vice president from May 2019 to May 2020. So I went in May 2019 to just kind of, help the families of graduates, giving them directions, helping them with whatever they need, as a public servant. So I went, but I'm glad I went because got to participate in all these graduation celebrations, because I mean, obviously, I didn't know that I was not going to have my graduation in May 2019, right? No one knew. Only God knew, and we only know what God shows us, right? And so I'm glad I did that. I guess God loves me, I wasn't gonna go because it's like 2 weeks of free labor. I'm just helping people. I'm not getting paid for it, but that's the kind of person I am. I'm responsible. I want to help people, and I take my position seriously. Um, yeah, but I'm glad I did, because it was kind of like participating in a graduation ceremony, although I wasn't graduating, but I didn't have a graduation ceremony. None of us did at Georgetown. 25 of us graduated on August 24, 2020. A no graduation ceremony. CNL 2020, Georgetown University, CNL 2020, yay! Yeah, so we graduated. I was the first one to pass my NCLEX RN exam. I passed it on August 31st, 2020. I was the first one to pass the national certification exam for clinical nurse leader and from my cohort 2020 CNL, clinical nurse leader, Georgetown University. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully everybody passes NCLEX RN, but my guess is some people will flunk the NCLEX RN exam. It's very hard. And as you know, the libraries were all shut, so you can't study in the library. Cafes are shut, so you can't study in the cafe. Some people can only study in the cafe. Yeah, there are people like that. Some people can only study in the library. So these people are going to flunk the NCLEX RN because they can't study at home. Some people just can't study at home. Those people are going to flunk NCLEX RN. How are they going to pass? So I feel very bad for them because it's not their fault that the whole world is shutting down. But they're going to suffer the consequences of it because their habit while they were doing bachelor's in college was to study in cafe. That's how they got through and aced their classes, and they can't do that now. So some of them are going to flunk NCLEX RN because they can't study in a cafe or study in the library. Some people just can't study at home. Yeah. There are people like that. How are they going to pass NCLEX RN? So, I wish all 25 will pass from my cohort, but I don't think so. Our group chat has gone silent. I'm not kidding you. We have a group chat, Clinical Nurse Leader CNL 2020. We have a group chat, and we share all kinds of stuff. It's gone silent. I won't be surprised if there are a few who failed the NCLEX RN already. Because if they passed, they would have probably said, I passed, right? People celebrate, they share good news. So it's gone silent. That's a bad news. They say no news is good news. Now when everybody's taking NCLEX RN, no news is bad news. Yeah. Hopefully, they take their time to study for it. I mean, geez, it's a hard exam. You can't just like wing it. I mean, you wing it, you're going to flunk it. You know what I'm saying? You know how hard I studied for this NCLEX RN exam? I've shared it with you before. I mean, I devoted like 10 to 15 hours per day since the last day of classes. And that was like, when was that? Like first week of August? I dedicated 10 to 15 hours per day just studying for NCLEX RN. Yeah. So yes, our graduation date is technically August 24th, but our last day of classes was like 6th of August or something. So I've been studying like 10 to 15 hours per day for NCLEX RN since then to my exam on August 31st. Yeah, so I wasn't going to wing it. I mean, geez, yeah, it's probably the most important exam you'll take in your life. because it's your profession. You know, it's what licenses you, right? Your degree doesn't license you. Your degree gives you training to be an expert. But you still need to be licensed, right? If you're not licensed, your 2 years of master's degree in clinical nurse leader is useless because you cannot practice. Dr. Pepper, I like Dr. Pepper. Because you cannot practice as a nurse without your RN license, and to get an RN license, you have to pass your NCLEX RN test. So I won't just wing it, and that's a warning to all of you out there who are done with your bachelor's in science and nursing or master's in clinical nurse leader. Who think you could just wing it because you studied for 2 years? Don't wing it. It's like the SAT. You could be a #1 straight A student and you could bomb the SAT. Michael Matosian, he was valedictorian of South Pasadena High School. So he's incredibly smart, but he didn't do so well on his SAT. That's why he didn't get into Harvard. He went to UCLA, but I don't think he cares if I share, but he didn't get into any of the Ivy League university because his SAT score wasn't high enough. Obviously, had he done like Kaplan's class or Princeton Review for like 3-4 months, I'm sure he would have gotten perfect score on SAT because Reverend Michael Matosian's genius. But you need to prepare for the test. Just because you got rank 1 in your high school in all the subjects doesn't mean you're gonna ace the test. It's like that with NCLEX RN. Everybody studies for NCLEX RN. Everyone, separately from their nursing courses. Just because you have straight A's in your nursing classes doesn't mean you're going to pass NCLEX RN. NCLEX RN is a specific exam. So, like 86% pass, those who have like master's degrees, but 14% fail. What do you think those 14% who failed because they didn't do well in their program? No, they failed because they didn't do Princeton Review or Kaplan intensive course. They weren't prepared for it. So they know the material, but you have to be able to produce the material in the way the test is designed, right? So it's not just about knowing the material. You have to be able to answer the questions in the format of the test that you're supposed to take, right? And so you need to prepare for that. It's like that in life with anything, right? It's like JD bar exam. My sister passed California bar in the first try. She studied really hard for it, Yeah, I mean, you have to study for it. You can't just wing it. Obviously, I want more than 50% of my colleagues to pass NCLEX RN. I don't think like 50% will fail, but you never know because study habits die hard, meaning people who can only study in the library, they can only study in the library. So they could be straight A students. Maybe they graduate with 4.0 from Bachelor's of Science and Nursing program at Georgetown. But if they could only study in the library and there's no library open, it's possible they'll flunk the NCLEX RN. People are creatures of habit, and you take them out of habit, they can't function. Some of them cannot adapt. And it's survival of the fittest. I guess adaptation is necessary, but it's not always easy to adapt. That's why you have species going extinct with drastic weather changes or environmental changes or ecological changes. You do deforest, Amazon forest, you have all these powerful creatures dying because they can't adapt. If you can't adapt, you die. And that's been since the beginning of time, right? Dinosaurs could not adapt to changing in weather conditions and they died off. The most powerful animals on Earth died because they couldn't adapt to changing weather conditions. Yeah, it happens. Unfortunately, this is part of life, right? COVID-19, it was unpredictable. Had it not stricken, I'm sure 100% of us would have passed because all of us would have taken Kaplan review. I was planning to take Kaplan as well. I mean, I saved $800, but you know, I mean, I had 99% chance of passing in the predictor test that I took. I guess it was in May, but I was still planning to take Kaplan test. I wasn't gonna joke around with NCLEX RN exam. It's the most important exam in your life, basically. If you want to work as a nurse, you're not gonna mess around with that. You're not gonna toy around with that. You're not just gonna wing it. Um, yeah, I mean, but there was no Kaplan courses, review courses available. Like you go to a Kaplan center, you take, you sit on review courses. They have the whole like course, several week long course. Yeah, I mean, I was going to do that. Just because I wanted a comprehensive review and everything. But I mean, there was none, so I had to I basically worked on the textbooks that I had, and ATI and Virginia Hospital Center paid for like a several week course. I took that, and I I just went in, but I worked hard. I studied like 10 to 15 hours per day on average going into NCLEX RN exam. That's what you got to do. If you think that you're gonna just pass because you finished a 2-year program, I think you're not being serious with your life, because the cohort before us, clinical nurse leader 2019, I think Nicolaus, a friend of mine from the courts, I think he said everybody took the Kaplan class, every single one. And I think they all passed because, you take Kaplan class, like intensive, like over 100 hours of review that they do for you. They monitor you and, they help you. These, coaches, tutors. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, so hopefully people don't, I hope, it'll be so sad if, they do 2 years of masters in clinical nurse leader and they flunk the NCLEX RN. That'll be so sad. So sad. Yeah, I mean, if you're prepared, take it, but don't wing it. This is because I care about you, my core members. CNL 2020 CNL, yay! I love you guys. Yeah. India is number 1 in Asia for COVID-19 death, and look at the numbers. India is headed toward millions of deaths in the flu season. They have 4,591,364 cases, 2% death rate, 91,149 have died so far. Bangladesh is number 2. Look how much lower the cases are. So India is getting it hard, but don't count Bangladesh out, because if you look at Latin America, Brazil was like really high, and then other countries start catching up to Brazil. So Mexico has over 70,000 deaths now. So, and these are countries with less than 1,000 deaths. Now have like tens of thousands of deaths. What a difference, a few months makes, right? And by Christmas, you will see what I mean. You will see the whole world remade through COVID-19. Yeah, it's going to be horrific. Pakistan has 308,217 cases, 2% death rate, 6,437 people have died. It's one of these things where the more confident you are, the more chance you're going to have to die. Confidence is generally good. Confidence is not good with COVID-19. Because you're a human being, you're not going to be able to defeat COVID-19 on your own. It's kind of like somebody's holding a gun. It doesn't matter how confident you are. If he shoots you, you're going to die because you're human. Doesn't matter how confident you are. So if somebody's holding a gun, you should hide, right? I mean, don't try to be a hero and rush him because bullet flies faster than you. Yeah, don't be a hero. None of your confidence is going to save your life. You have these semi-automatic pistols. They can fire like what? Dozens of bullets in like 1 minute. How are you gonna escape that? Yeah, don't be a hero. No confidence is gonna save you from that. If you see somebody robbing a store, don't be a hero. Just like duck and hide. Don't die. I mean, you get all confident and try to be a hero, you're gonna be shot to death. Yeah. Let the robber take his stuff, then call the police. Let the police handle it. Yeah, I mean, it's like that with COVID-19. Don't try to be like all confident and bravado, not wearing a mask, thinking like you're all cool, because you'll be like the first one to die. Yeah, I mean, don't do that. I mean, geez. There are times where you should be confident, but there are times it's just idiotic to be too confident. You see what I'm saying? And COVID-19 is one of them. You should always wear a mask when you go out of your home. And you should always social distance because you shouldn't act like you're God. You're a human being. You can die from COVID-19. Yeah. Um, it's not going away. We have 6 months of flu season where it's going to kill millions. Philippines has 296,755 cases, 2% death rate, 5,127 have died so far. But death rate is increasing in Philippines too. It used to be like under 1,000. No, it's like over 1,000, five. By Christmas, it may be, dozens of tens, like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or maybe it may even go over a million. Who knows? Indonesia has 262,022 cases, 4% death rate, 10,105 have died so far. Yeah, it's not good. COVID-19 America, what came before it? As you know, I sang in Let Freedom Ring Choir for 2 years. So Let Freedom Ring Choir at Georgetown University is the choir that prepares for Martin Luther King Day. And we sing at the Kennedy Center on Martin Luther King Day in the evening. And you see the photo below me, like I'm preparing and I took photo with the conductor who's a minister. He's a nice guy. I like him a lot. Next to my video, you have Georgetown University President John DeHoya. He came and encouraged us when we were practicing at Gaston Hall, which is in Healy Hall, third floor of Healy Hall, at Georgetown University. It's a beautiful room. So you see, I took this photo before our performance. I'm standing behind these guys or sitting behind these guys. So I took a photo before our performance started. And you can see all these people. It was a full house. It always is a full house. And Chaka Kahn, Chaka Kahn, Chaka Kahn. She was a soloist. She was good. I like Chaka Kahn. And she was great. And so yeah. So she so she sang. I should have taken a photo of Chaka Khan, but it was during a performance. It would have been weird if I took out a camera, or my phone to take a photo. Although I think some people in the choir did that, but um, yeah. But anyway, so this was 2019 Martin or 2020. This was 2020 Martin Luther King Day. You could actually go to Kennedy Center and watch the whole show, like 2 hours of it. Yeah, you'll see me swinging and singing. Yeah. So and you could also see the 2019 performance. I was in that as well. Um, yeah, and that was really nice too. I had my ticket. I don't know why they say GWU artist. It's Georgetown artist. I guess Kennedy Center printed it wrong. But anyway, it's the guest artist. That's what I was. Artist staff singing in the Freedom Choir. I was planning to sing again. Yes, I'm an alumnus now of Georgetown, but I was going to sing in Let Freedom Ring Choir in 2021, Martin Luther King Day, but I guess we're not going to have it. Yeah, I'm kind of upset. I was looking forward to seeing everybody again. You know, because same people show up. You know, Rebecca Kaiser, she's now an RN nurse in Maryland. Um, and she got her bachelor's of science in nursing in May 2020. She was pinned with 26 people who got pinned for bachelor's of science in nursing when 25 of us, clinical nurse leader, master's students, got pinned together, the BSNs and the master's students. And Rebecca Kaiser is a nurse. She sang both of the years. So, she'll probably sing again in 2021, if it were open. But yeah, I guess not. I mean, because these events like kind of is like a reunion as well, right? For people who sing. So I guess I'll miss everybody that I would have seen in 2021. I won't see them because of COVID-19. How sad. Oh, the ducky, ducky, ducky with ducky's Santa Claus hat. Uh, it's gonna be a horrific Christmas. We're gonna have so many people die by Christmas. I'm predicting that 10,000 nurses will die before Christmas in America alone. First flu season was nothing because I mean COVID-19 really didn't start spreading in America until like what March, Yeah, it was in Washington State, but apart from that, um, but now COVID is everywhere in America. So this flu season, 6 months, take a lot of healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, physical therapists, respiratory therapists. A lot of people are gonna die. So since I'm a nurse, I have my RN license in Washington D.C. and I have a different separate RN license in Virginia. It's a multi-state license, so I can practice as an RN nurse like 30 states in America. Um, and since I'm a nurse, I'm I'm trying to see what the situation will be like for us. And I think about 10,000 will die, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean it's COVID-19. You know how serious COVID-19 is. You know, at the hospital, if you treat, if you deal with patients with COVID-19, you have to wash your hand. You can't use the alcohol wipe. You know, alcohol-based wipe. You can't. You are required by hospital policy to wash your hand with soap and water for 20-second minimum. I mean, that shows you how dangerous COVID-19 is. Yeah, because they're not going to force you to wash your hand for 20 seconds every time you touch a patient with COVID-19. If you want to serious, you know how much time consuming that is to wash your hand for 20 seconds every time, where you could just do alcohol, like wipe, and you walk somewhere. You actually have to physically go to a sink and wash and dry. It'll take you like at least a minute, maybe a couple minutes. If there's a whole line of nurses, because there aren't sinks everywhere, right? You have to wait in line to wash your hand. I mean, it'll take like 5 minutes to wash your hand with the other nurses washing their hands too. Yeah, we're looking at horrific winter. If you get COVID-19, come to Virginia Hospital Center. Maybe, I'll take care of you, or, any of my fellow nurses at Virginia Hospital Center will take care of you. They're all really nice and they're really, really good. So I'm sure you'll be very happy there. Yeah, so I mean, whatever condition you have, COVID-19, heart attack, stroke, if you have problem breathing, just come to the emergency room at Virginia Hospital Center. You know, yeah, I mean, you could drive there, but if you really can't breathe, you should call 911, obviously. But yeah, I mean, and Virginia Hospital Center has the best mother baby in 2020, according to Newsweek, and they're serious about researching hospitals for the ordinary people because they want to provide the accurate information. So it's trustworthy info. So if you're pregnant, come to Virginia Hospital Center. Very good place to have a baby. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a really nice hospital. I think you would like it. If you haven't been there before. Yeah, and you may be treated by me here at Christian Cam. Yeah, so maybe I'll see you there. Yeah, hopefully you don't get sick or anything, so I don't see you there. But if you do get sick, come to Virginia Hospital Center. Um, yeah. Anyway, I'm glad you checked in and see this. You know, um, saw this show. I'll keep giving you updates. Things that Dr. Fauci says that I feel like you should kind of hear or be aware of, or anything else that I feel like you need to be aware of. I'll let you know in this show. I'll give you some recommendations and advice. It might be a good idea for you to follow it. I think it will help you survive and your children survive. Um, yeah. So anyway, I created this show on April 2nd, 2020, many months ago, to help you and your family survive COVID-19. And I know that many of you listen to my advice and you've survived COVID. As you know, we're going to have a lot of people die. But even if like 20 million people die, that means like 310 million Americans did not die, right? So let's be among the Americans who don't die. I mean, that's the group that we want to be in. So yeah, keep watching the show every day. And yeah, so I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And I'll bring more updates that will help you and your family. I hope that you'll be well and that your family will be well too. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.